Welcome back to Newscentre. Khaleda Zia, Bangladesh's first female Prime Minister and one of the country's most popular leaders, has died at the age of 80 after a prolonged illness. She would be buried beside the grave of her husband, a pivotal figure in Bangladesh politics in the post-Mujib era, along with Sheikh Hasina. Khaleda Zia was born in India's Jalpaiguri at the age of 15. She was married to Ziaur Rahman, a military officer who went on to become the president of Bangladesh. She was thrust into the political arena after the assassination of her husband in 1981. Later, she joined forces with other political parties, including Sheikh Hasina's Awami League, to end General Ershad's military rule. But their ties soured over the years, with power oscillating between the two dynasts for the better part of the next 2 decades. A 3-time Prime Minister, Khaleda Zia has never lost an election from any constituency she ever contested in the general elections of 91, 96 and 2001. She was elected from all of the 5 parliamentary seats where she was a candidate. She was convicted in a corruption case in 2018, a charge that her party rejected as being politically motivated. She was acquitted of all charges last year. After the ouster of Sheikh Hasina as the undisputed supremo of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Begum Zia, as she was known in close circles, had entered the electoral fray this time as well. Her candidacy had been announced from 3 constituencies. Zia's son, Tarique Rahman, returned to Bangladesh after a self-imposed exile of 17 years last week and is likely to be the Prime Ministerial frontrunner in the parliamentary election scheduled in February. Prime Minister Modi has condoled the death of Khaleda Zia. We're now joined by Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh, and Meera Shankar, former Indian Ambassador to the United States. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me go across to Ambassador Sikri first. Ambassador Sikri, how would you describe the relations between India and Bangladesh as a result of Khaleda Zia? And what would be her contribution to India-Bangladesh ties, even though she was always seen as pro-China, pro-Pakistan and anti-India?
Well, I think it is very sad. She has passed away today. She was very ill for a long time. I think, first of all, I would like to also recall her legacy within Bangladesh. And here, 2 facts are important. She did stabilize the BNP, the Bangladesh National Party, after the death of her husband, President Ziaur Rahman. And she did take the party forward. And as you've said, she did win election. She was Prime Minister actually for 2 full terms. The 3rd time she was Prime Minister just for a very short period. And then the election was... the election results were called off and the caretaker government came into being. So I think this factor of her stabilizing the BNP is important. Secondly, I think she has contributed, together with the Awami League, to democracy in Bangladesh. I think it's important to know that in 1991, when President Ershad was at the height of his military dictatorship, Awami League and BNP got together, and Sheikh Hasina and Begum Khaleda Zia fought a peaceful movement against President Ershad that he should step down and allow democratic election. And he did that. And I remember even talking to President Ershad later as to how come, after being a military dictator, how did he suddenly agree? And he said that, I knew that if I did not agree to the 2 women leaders of these parties, there would be bloodshed across Bangladesh. I didn't want that. So that is how democracy came to Bangladesh. Came back to Bangladesh after 15 years of dictatorship, military dictatorship. And it was due to 2 political parties. Now, having said all this, and then again in 2007-8, she combined with the Awami League on again having elections at the end of 2008 and not allowing the army-backed caretaker government to continue. Having said all of this, I think when we look at relations between India and Bangladesh, here I think the biggest problem that you see is that Begum Khaleda Zia, the BNP, has always been very pro-Pakistan. And even in the years when I was there, between 2003 and 2006, you saw Pakistan's activities in Bangladesh were at an all-time high. Since 1971, they had not been so high. And then, for example, these were reflected in things like assistance for the Northeast Indian insurgent groups. They were very active in Bangladesh. They would, do the terrorist acts across Northeast India, then come to Bangladesh. They had camps there, they had homes there, they had business accounts there, they had, all kinds of flourishing things going on. So that was very difficult for us. That was very difficult. And, secondly, all terrorist attacks in India in those days had a Bangladeshi footprint. The Pakistanis would come to Bangladesh and then walk across to a very uncontrolled, very, less guarded border than it is today, and walk back to Jammu and Kashmir, walk to Karnataka.
Okay.
It was a great problem.
Master Sikri, Right. Yeah, I'm going to come back to you. Let me also get in Ambassador Meera Shankar at this point. Ambassador Shankar, what do you think was her biggest driving force in terms of her politics? And how much of that will be continued by Tarique Rahman, her son, who is now being seen as the Prime Ministerial candidate from the Bangladesh Nationalist Party?
I think Khaleda Zia's legacy is a bit mixed because on the one hand, she claimed the heritage of the freedom struggle and liberation struggle for Bangladesh via her husband, who had been a freedom fighter, General Ziaur Rahman. And on the other hand, she also had a coalition government with 4 Islamic parties. So this central rift in Bangladesh between those who think that Bangladesh's national identity should be defined primarily in terms of their language, which is Bengali, and their culture, and those who think that the primary identity of Bangladesh is based on religion. She tried, in a sense, she bridged this gap. The difficulty for India lay in that she crafted a kind of policy of Bangladeshi nationalism in terms of standing up to India, eschewing the pragmatism which geography demanded. As a result of that, I think Bangladesh paid a price in terms of foregone opportunities, including, apart from providing shelter and support to northeastern insurgent groups and letting the terrorist groups who had come in the backwash of the end of Afghanistan war back to Bangladesh operate very freely across the border. She also opposed pragmatic economic cooperation, including transit, which is
All right.
a win-win for both, and structured defense deals with China, including for tanks, frigates, etc., which changed the orientation of the Bangladesh army. So a mixed picture. Later on, I think she showed a degree of pragmatism or signaled a degree of pragmatism. And I think this pragmatism was also reciprocated by the Indian government, which, Prime Minister Modi met her when he went to Bangladesh in 2015.
Okay.
And he had also sent a message. And the son who is now back, Tarique Rahman, his statements so far have been cause for some optimism if they are adhered to, because he's talking of creating a Bangladesh beyond the legacy of vendetta politics.
That's important. Thank you so much, Ambassador Meera Shankar, for joining us, and Ambassador Veena Sikri as well. We've completely run out of time, but thank you very much for putting Begum Khaleda Zia's legacy in perspective for our viewers. That's what she was known in close circles. And let's see what happens and the kind of legacy Tarique Rahman takes forward. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. More news and updates right here.